Beautiful like a fresco and fascinating for its idiosyncrasies, Street Fighter III Third Strike is a melting pot of both popular culture and fighting game design. This is the Annotated Third Strike. If there is a maxim upheld by practically all of video gaming, it is that ninjas are great and everybody loves them. The Street Fighter III games are no exception. In fact, you'd be forgiven if you took a good long look at Ibuki, the resident ninja of this series, and had mistaken her as a positioned new star, at least in Japan. Certainly there's no shortage of reference material for the design team to work with for the Silent Assassins, according to the Street Fighter III series producer Tomoshi Sadamoto in a recent Capcom Fighters Network interview. But when taking a holistic view of the character, she certainly seems to have more work put into her than most of the other cast. Take her actual sprite. According to the same interview with Sadamoto, Ibuki has 1.2 to 1.3 more data than other characters because of her hair alone. Sadamoto knows this because he did all the hair attachments himself. It took several months, he says. When I first looked at the data, I thought, wow, the hair is going to be difficult. Good luck with that. And then a few months later, it ended up being me doing all the work. As another example, think of her gameplay. Without getting a little too ahead of ourselves, Ibuki has 9 target combos and 9 command normal moves, as well as a robust general normal moveset. She's almost over-engineered. And finally, take into account her story, because Ibuki is a component in the overall plot. From supplemental material like the Street Fighter Eternal Challenge, we know that Ibuki was raised in a ninja village and trained from an early age in the art of ninjutsu. Though still young, she's only beginning university by the time Third Strike ends. She enjoys her adventurous lifestyle, but dreams of being a regular schoolgirl and all that comes with it, like boys, homework, and joining clubs. However, Ibuki's role in these games is to steal the G-file from central antagonist Gil and his secret organization. Though we can't glean what that is from anything in-game, we'll see in future videos for Necro and 12 that it's Gil's plan to use genetically modified super soldiers to usher in a new age of his rule. This seems largely resolved by the end of Second Impact, as Ibuki's ending shows her reflecting on her interactions with a confident Gil when she obtains the G-file before mistaking her friend and fellow ninja student Sorai Kurosawa for a potential foe. Her motivations in Third Strike are to finally graduate from her ninja training by tracking down a Sennin, which is an old sage-like character in Japanese culture, and beat them in a fight. This leads her to a showdown with Oro before a rematch with Gil, finally completing her journey through the games in one of the more comedic endings for the series. If you enjoy manga and anime, then the term Sennin may sound familiar to you. If you enjoy playing as Ibuki, then you can probably guess why. High school ninja manga was fairly common in Japan since the late 1970s and early 80s, perhaps beginning with the manga Igano Kappamaru by Tu Atsuki in 1979, and later solidified into its own subgenre with the long-running comedy manga Rakurai Ninja Rantaro by Sobe Amako, which began publication in 1986. This is all before the high school ninja archetype exploded into popular culture in 1997, the same year that New Generation debuted, with Masashi Kishimoto's beloved manga Naruto. Ninja, as many are well aware, were assassins, thieves, and spies operating in Japan in the early 12th century, but more formalized some hundreds of years later, often employing guerrilla tactics in terms of combat and covert methods for espionage. Mercenary camps that housed them became training villages over time, such as the famous Iga and Koga ninja clans that often appear in popular historical fiction. Ibuki's ninja village is not so unlike these clans, having her compatriots appear in the background faces for the New Generation and Second Impact stages, which led some fans and even the games press, as evident in a March 1997 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, to speculate that she's somehow connected to lost Street Fighter I character Geki to some capacity. There's been nothing to cite that proves this to be true. The other ninja have been given official names according to the All About Capcom Head-to-Head Fighting Games book, and they can be found on the right. Here in Third Strike, her background, though, is relatively simple road to Kyoto at 5:51 p.m. Kyoto, one of Japan's largest cities, was the capital of the island nation for several centuries before moving to Tokyo during the Hamaguri Rebellion in 1864. Geographically, it's very close to the Iga province where many historical ninja were trained. Incidentally, Ibuki's New Generation stage was unique in that game for spoiling the ruling of Judgment. Her little pet Donchan will run off subtly right before the round ends if Ibuki loses, which animates before the Judgment girls have their say. Quickly talking about Donchan is worthwhile though, as he's a tanuki, a sort of raccoon dog found in Japan. Though these are extant animals that can be easily found today, they have a special place in Japanese folklore for being, as Wikipedia describes it, mischievous and jolly masters of disguise and shape-shifting that can often be gullible and absent-minded. Metaphorically, this describes a boy-crazy teenage girl fairly accurately. In the Capcom Secret Files promotional pamphlet for New Generation, we know that there are 256 Tanuki that live near Ibuki's village, many of them with very ninja-like qualities. Given what we know of ninja history and Ibuki's own role in the game then, it's interesting to point out that though her methods of achieving objectives may be radical and even violent, she is packing a lot of throwing knives after all. Her end goal is relatively pure and maybe even for the greater good. Many folk heroes from around the world and from various traditions share these traits, that a guerrilla fighter or secret operative is taking from the powerful to the benefit of the common people. Given what we see of other characters in the game and how they borrow from these figures from the ancient world, we can perhaps surmise that she represents one of Japan's most famous Robin Hood-like folk heroes, Ishikawa Goemon, a thief and probable runaway ninja that lived from 1558 to 1594. Though actual records conflict about the life and adventures of this person, stories range from stealing from the rich to give to the poor, exacting righteous vengeance upon despotic rulers, and other such exploits only grew taller over time. What seems to be agreed upon, though, is that he was boiled alive in a public execution in, where else, the city of Kyoto. Like his heroic outlaw counterpart in the West, Goemon has had many adaptations in historic and popular culture over the centuries, from kabuki theater to video games. But while Ibuki, whose name means breath in English, may be very loosely based on classical figures, in this game she's yet another young member of an extremely young cast of characters. Some of her early design work shows slightly more stoic male body features, some of which may have migrated to Yuta Homura, her sparring partner in one of her match intros. You could also make the case that some of these traits found their way to Makoto's design, another of several high school students in the game with whom Ibuki shares a unique match intro. She's also one of the few characters to maintain a consistent voice actor across all three Street Fighter III games. She's voiced by longtime anime and video games voiceover artist Yuri Amano, whom has credits from everything from Sailor Moon to Pokemon. Finally, she's like Sean in that she went from godhood in Second Impact to be brought down to a more reasonable level for Third Strike tournament play. While the basic tenets of her playstyle remain largely consistent, Ibuki's third super art was deemed overpowered and excised from the game and replaced with the super art 3 we'll discuss in a moment. It wasn't quite the fall that Sean had taken from one game to the next, but this and other small adjustments to her normal moveset places her in the mid-tier character range as far as the Third Strike community is concerned. But those basic tenets I mentioned do make her a solid character, built for both aggressive rushdowns and bewildering misdirection. Ibuki's toolset is expansive and allows for a fair amount of experimentation, but also reveals other quirks of the Street Fighter III engine that the other characters thus far haven't been able to take advantage of quite like she can. Before that, take a look at her normal moveset, and note that her jumping hard kick will slam an opponent to the ground, while her close hard kick acts as a launcher for follow-up moves. One of the more interesting and maybe lesser known aspects of the Street Fighter III series engine is what some refer to as an on-the-ground cross-up, the ability to get on the other side of an opponent without jumping over them. Most characters can do this naturally when timing forward dashes against a character that's trying to quickstand to clip to the other side, which is probably a glitch. Ibuki's dash lets her do this naturally though, as she phases past an opponent, though at the cost of having one of the slower overall dashes in the game. Luckily, she has a faster command dash to compensate if she just wants to get in close by executing a quarter circle forward and a kick button. Much like other small examples we've found so far, SNK's King of Fighters series had commands for these types of moves since KOF 96. The other under-the-hood quirk is her ability to super jump cancel after landing many moves on hit or even block, such as her standing hard kick. This means that even after knocking an opponent into the air, she can cancel the last frame of her attack animations to chase down the enemy and continue attacking. Many of these combos take a fair amount of practice to execute, but like the rest of her gameplay, Ibuki is built to keep the other player guessing and on the defensive at all times. Other characters take advantage of super jump canceling in similar ways, while some characters can use it for some more advanced super art cancels, and these are all character specific. Ibuki has several command normal moves that greatly expand her stand-up game. Pressing toward the opponent in light kick is a low round kick that can be quickly chained together. Toward medium kick will travel over low attacks and is a common starter for some combos. Toward and hard kick is similar, can go over projectiles with proper timing, but isn't a combo ready move. Pressing back in medium kick will poke out a hook kick with some nice range, but can be ducked under by much of the cast. While ducking herself, pushing down forward and medium kick will slide under most projectiles for a surprise ground poke. For punches, she has a 2-hit palm that can be used for a quick anti-air move by pressing back and medium punch, and her standing far hit punch can also add an extra hit by pressing hard punch again. What's a little nutty about Ibuki is that many of these moves appear in the vast target combo arsenal I mentioned earlier. For the sake of brevity, I won't list the commands for all of these as they can be easily found online, but it is worth noting that even at the most basic level, Ibuki can chain together all of her standing punches and all of her standing kicks. Combining this with the super jump canceling, and it seems as though much of her gameplay was influenced by Capcom's crossover versus fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom, where this type of play was standard across the roster. Ibuki is one of the 3 characters in the game with an air throw, which, like her normal ground throw, can be teched out of by an aware opponent. Her taunt has similar properties. Passively, it will boost her next attack or combo damage, and will cause damage itself if the leapfrog connects. A ready opponent can tech it like a throw, parry it, or even block it, but it's a unique taunt that can be comboed into and therefore not blocked when used in that way. On the special move side, her tools are similarly robust. One of her best known moves is the jumping kunai throw, executed by a quarter circle forward and punch in the air, the strength of the button determining the angle of the throw. This is a versatile move that can be used as a follow-up in a few different aerial situations, such as her command jump that can be executed by a dragon punch motion and a kick button. Burning some meter for the EX variation tosses a second knife for added damage. There's some risk to using this move though, as a kunai can be deflected without blocking it from well-timed attacks or even opposing projectiles. Kunai, incidentally, are common ninja tools in popular culture, but were originally farming implements dating back to the Tensho era of Japan. They're primarily unsharpened for durability, so a user could employ them for climbing tools as well as weapons, the hole in the hilt being open for attaching rope or twine for various uses. The Raida is a blockable throw-like attack that is commonly used in some of Ibuki's punish combos. Performed with a half circle back and a punch button, the strength of the button determining the startup time and damage output, and has no EX variation. Raida translates into lightning strike, according to the translations in Eternal Challenge, which are what I'll use for translations unless otherwise noted. The Hien, which translates into swallow in flight, is a great tool for catching an opponent napping from a distance. Executed by a reverse dragon punch and a kick, with the button strength determining the distance, it can also be used to throw a kunai after the move connects to the opponent. It also counts as an overhead, so this move has a lot of practical use at various ranges, especially the EX variation that comes loaded with fast startup frames. The Tsumuji, or whirlwind, is a common combo ender for Ibuki, and is often used as parry bait in some high-level matchups. Basically, successive attacks of her back medium kick command normal, the light version attacks twice while the medium version can add a third kick with a well-timed button press. The heavy version will always grant 3 attacks and an EX variation will throw out 5 and cause a knockdown. Not a perfect special due to some inconsistencies with how often all attacks connect, the hard kick and EX versions can be varied to replace some of the moves with low sweeps, though most opponents know well enough to block this move low whenever they can to be completely safe. The Kubiori, or Kubikari, slides Ibuki across the ground and under projectiles with a quarter circle forward and a punch button to determine the distance, with an EX version that grants added speed and active length. It can be blocked low and leaves her very much unsafe. It translates into neck breaker. Finally, the Kazekiri, or Wind Cutter, is her version of the anti-air dragon punch, implemented by that command motion with a kick button. It doesn't always knock an opponent down, which makes its secondary usefulness as a setup for air attacks a little bit more effective. The EX version will even allow her to throw a kunai at the height of the jump. It also allows you to use the Kasumi Suzaku, her first super art, as well. In fact, all situations where Ibuki can use her kunai makes this super art available, which is one of the reasons that high-level players tend to use this SA exclusively. This move has a lot going for it, actually. It's not her most damaging super, but it can cause a fair amount of chip damage to blocking opponents, especially since mashing the punch button throws more projectiles to a total of 20. Combine that with some challenging parry timing, and this move can be used to put her into safer positions and set a match back to a neutral state, or even chip out low health adversaries if not used in traditional combos. Even if not employed in a round at all, its other significance is that it has 3 stockable bars of meter, which grants her the most EX use of any other super art that she has. It translates into Phoenix Mist. Phoenixes are birds from Greek mythology that die and are reborn from their ashes and are common fixtures in popular culture. Super Art 2, Yoroi Doshi, connects and damages differently depending on the use. At point blank range, it acts as a sort of variation on the Raida move, but changes into a one-frame throw that cannot be blocked or parried. At any distance past that, it turns into a sort of giant stationary fireball that can hit up to 15 times, which also causes substantial chip if all the hits connect. This is her most damaging super art, but the uses are much more situational than either of the others, and since it only arms her with one medium-sized meter, it's not standard use for Ibuki players. It translates into Armor Piercer. Super Art 3, Yamishigure, or Darkness Shower, is interesting less for what it is than what it's not. As mentioned earlier, the new generation in Second Impact Super Art 3 was the Hashinsho, or Heart Strike. That, like some of the other better super arts in the game, had a super fast startup time, decent damage, and low meter cost. It could also be comboed into from nearly anything, and for a character like Ibuki with such a large set of normals and target combos, the slightest touch of a grounded opponent can end with this move. Curiously, instead of nerfing the super in Third Strike, the team just replaced it with the Yamishigure, which throws grounded kunai determined by the strength of the punch button pressed, resulting in an instant combo. Though Ibuki can only stock one of them, it has a fairly small meter, so even if botched, a player can logically build up another chance to use it in the same round. It has a fun combo application as well, but lacks the overall versatility of Super Art 1. But versatility is absolutely something Ibuki has in spades. With her vast array of target combos, she can easily abuse most of the cast, especially the taller characters like Hugo, Q, and Urien, as the air target combos have more room to work with. Again, she isn't the powerhouse she was in Second Impact, and she takes her share of skill and practice to play, but Street Fighter III's Teenage Ninja has a lot going for her, and a fascinating example of how a character that might work better in a different fighting game series can be implemented here.